I'm Marilyn. I'm 1/3 of TM plus baby A, and today I wanted to do my plus size pregnancy story. I've tried to film this maybe 2 or 3 times, but every time that I do, it just doesn't feel right. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because a lot happened and I don't know how to wrap my head around it, or because my postpartum was so bad and it's just difficult to think about. I don't know. My pregnancy it felt long, but it also felt fast. You know, just being plus size, your pregnancy is automatically considered as high risk. But I don't know, I do think that it is possible to have a very healthy pregnancy even if you are a plus size woman. And I do think that it is very difficult to find a community of doctors that will not automatically assume that something is wrong with you or your baby just because you are plus size. But yeah, so let's get started with my plus size pregnancy story. My last period was August 17th. We missed the night of ovulation, and then we did the deed the next night, and I was pregnant by September 17th. In September, I'd gotten a cold, and for some reason I couldn't kick it, and I was taking Dayquil, NyQuil, and nothing was working. And then September 22nd or 23rd, I took a pregnancy test, and it came out positive because I did miss my period. My first doctor's appointment was October 14th. I have all of this written down, so if y'all see me glancing down a lot, that is why. But my first doctor appointment, which was at 8 weeks, was October 14th, 2017. And I had searched for that doctor because I didn't want a doctor who's automatically going to be like, you're fat, your pregnancy is going to be blah, your baby's going to be sick, and all this stuff. So I searched for doctors. I searched on public forums about like doctors that aren't weight, like, I don't even know what word to use, like weight discriminative, I guess. Like, I wanted a doctor who's gonna look at me and my health and not just be like, oh, well, you're fat, so your pregnancy is gonna be shit. So I found this doctor. She was amazing. This doctor, we went October 14th, like I said, was my first doctor's appointment, and they did the ultrasound. And she said, yep, you're pregnant. And it was just a little tiny bean. Just dum. My heart was just beating. And I was very nervous, but I was pregnant. We were very excited. And I had to tell my family before because I was on my mom's insurance. So she was going to find out anyway that I was going to go to the doctor. So I just told them ahead of time. Keep in mind that we known each other for 2 months before we decided to start trying for a baby, and by 3 months I was pregnant. So it must have been like meant to be because it happened. So my first trimester was super smooth and easy with that doctor. I was super nauseous. I was throwing up a lot. I was throwing up every day up until 21 weeks. It was like anything. Like I could eat anything and I was just gonna throw it up. So my first trimester was super easy. I think they only see like once every 3 months in the beginning. And the doctor said I was fine, the baby's fine, everything's easy. The end of the year came and I had to switch doctors just because my insurance was changing. And so I went into my second trimester with a new doctor. We went to my new doctor. Everything was fine. The baby was fine, I was fine. But came, I think it was at 20 weeks, they do the big ultrasound where they check for everything and the gender just to make sure that your baby's doing good. And we went in for the ultrasound, and my doctor told me that she didn't know how to work the new machines and stuff, so she set me up an appointment with a specialist, which was like in the same general area. A week later, I think I was finally able to get an appointment like a week or 2 later. So around 21 to 22 weeks, we went to the specialist, and I have the washer going. So if y'all hear any like wild noises, that is why. I'm trying to get stuff done today. It is 9 in the morning and I'm trying to get videos filmed, things done, so I have stuff to put up for y'all. So, okay, back on track. So around 21 to 22 weeks, I went to the specialist. And everything was perfectly fine with me and the baby up until this point. So I went to the specialist, they did the weight and they did the blood pressure. They do that with every single one of them, so don't worry about it. And they told me my blood pressure was elevated, and then they sent me back to the ultrasound room, and I had a new like specialist to do the ultrasound. She checked the baby, everything was fine. We could not get the gender because every time they went to go check the gender, her legs were crossed. She had hands over her legs. She was like in a weird position and she would not move. Like this baby would not budge at all. I don't know why. She just didn't want me to know what she was. And everything's fine with the baby and I'm fine. And they say because of my elevated blood pressure that they wanted me to come back next month. And that they wanted to monitor me a lot, so that would make 2 doctor's appointments up from now on because my blood pressure is elevated. So of course Tim and I like, well, what's wrong? Like, we got very nervous. So they sent me for blood work and everything came back normal, but they told me that because my blood pressure is elevated that I needed to be watched more closely, because that an elevated blood pressure in your 2nd trimester is one of the like symptoms or signs of preeclampsia. And I had heard about preeclampsia before, or from what I know and from what I've read, doctors do not know why you get it. It is just something that you get, and they don't have a cure for it. They don't know why you get it. They just know the symptoms of it, if that makes sense. So at this point, I'm still in my 2nd trimester and I'm going to the doctor twice a month, and every time I go to the specialist, my blood pressure is elevated. And I don't know why. It just is. It's just elevated. Of course, Tim and I naturally, we start getting very worried, and they keep telling me that, you know, with preeclampsia that the mom can go into the coma, she can get seizures, like all this stuff can happen. Your baby can be stillborn. But it was only when I was at the specialist. Every time that I went to my normal doctor, I was fine, the baby was fine, no worries. Those appointments were like freaking 10-15 minutes. But yeah, so we ended up finding out that the baby was a girl because Tim and I went to a private gender testing. The trimester was kind of like crazy because I was going to the doctor twice a month. They were taking blood every time. They were doing all these tests on me, and I don't know, when you first hear like preeclampsia, you get very nervous because one of the side effects of preeclampsia is death. So at this point I was just very nervous, and I just wanted to meet my baby girl, and I just wanted to see her. And I'm like not a religious person at all, and I remember just like staying up late and talking to God, who I don't even know if I have a relationship with, and just asking him and telling him that he can take me whenever he wants to, but I just wanted to see her. And I remember thinking that like so many times, so vividly, and just like always being, when I was alone, I would always just cry because I just wanted to see her, and I just wanted to hold her, and I just wanted to know that like, I just wanted to know what she looked like. You grow up and you have like all these dreams for your life and stuff, and I never knew what I wanted to be, but I always knew that I wanted to be a mom. And I always just wanted to see my curly haired baby, because I always knew that I was gonna have curly haired babies. But when they tell you that like you can lose your baby, or like you won't be here to see your baby, or all this stuff, like that shit gets to you, and it really does fuck you up. So my 2nd trimester was pretty bumpy, pretty intense, and I was going to the doctor twice a month. I was throwing up until 21 weeks, and we found out the baby was a girl, so that was that was amazing. But it was very stressful, and that I'm not gonna deny. Let's move on to my 3rd trimester. So at 32 weeks, I went in just for the normal, usual. And this time my blood pressure was super elevated, like 170 over 1, I don't even know. So my blood pressure was super elevated. They got really nervous, still sent me back to get an ultrasound and stuff. And while we were there, that ultrasound tech, I don't know what she said specifically, but she said something along the lines of like, oh, what's going on, is everything okay? And I said, yeah, but they're saying like my blood pressure is really high. And she was like, oh yeah, that machine does that a lot. And that's when Tim and I kind of like looked at each other, and she was like, oh no, all the women that come in here, like they all have high blood pressure, but that machine is off. And I was like, oh my god, okay. So we did the ultrasound, baby was fine, I was fine, doctor came in, everything was fine. And then he was like, okay, let's do your blood pressure again. And they checked it again, and the nurse who was doing my blood pressure, he told her, you're not doing it right. She was using the wrong size cuff, and she was doing it on the wrong like part of my arm. And at this point I was already all like revved up, and I was already all like, oh my god, what's going on? And I also asked her if she could do it manually, because she was using a machine, which obviously like, so yeah, so she did it manually while he was watching, which I feel like she got in trouble a little bit because she wasn't doing it right this whole time. So like, of course I'm already all revved up, and he's like, well, your blood pressure is still a bit high, so would you mind going to L&D, which is labor and delivery, which is where like you have your baby and stuff. Would you mind going to L&D to have yourself like evaluated? So I said, okay, guess we're going to L&D. And at this point I was very nervous. So we went down to L&D, and literally like 15 minutes, because it was right downstairs, 15 minutes to L&D when they hooked me up my first blood pressure bag. Boom, I was fine. And the nurse came in and she was like, why are you here? I was like, well, they told me like my blood pressure was super high and stuff. And she was like, you're fine, there's not really much going on. So I was like, okay. So yeah, she told me I was fine, which I was like, okay. So 15 minutes ago I was all stressed out. They wanted me to do the 24-hour pee test, and it's just where you keep your pee for 24 hours. Every time you go pee, you pee in this thing, and then you put it in a jug, and you put that jug in the fridge, and then you take it to them exactly 24 hours later, or they cannot take it. So I did that. It was weird, it was gross, it felt weird, it felt gross. Everything came back perfectly normal. So it wasn't a big old deal there, which I could have told you that. So now, because I had that spike in my blood pressure, and I'm further along in my pregnancy, they want to see me every 3 days. I went to the specialist, and on Thursdays I went to my regular ones by myself, because Tim worked Thursday, Friday, and 34 weeks my doctor went out of town because she had a convention in like California or something. So I was seeing one of her like co-workers, a doctor that she recommended, for 3 weeks. And around 35 weeks that doctor came in, and he told me that that the specialists were recommending that I be induced at 37 weeks. And he told me all this stuff about my weight, and that because my weight is up there, that like they recommend bigger women to get induced at 37 weeks, because like your body, something with your body, and like the babies get too big and stuff like that. But then he ended it by saying, you know, your body, your choice, you don't have to if you don't want to, but they're recommending it. And I said no. And he said, okay. And he left it alone. He didn't give me nothing. He didn't tell me nothing. He didn't give me no looks. He just said, okay, but they're recommending it, so I had to. Like, he said it like that. He was like, they're recommending it, so I have to tell you. I told him no. So by 37 weeks, my doctor was back. It was literally like that day, like 37 weeks on the dot, she was back, and I was seeing her. She said, hey, they're recommending that you get induced like today. So, and I told her, look, I really don't want to do that. I don't feel like it's beneficial. I want this baby to stay in as long as she wants to stay in. You know, she's my first, and she wants to stay until 41 weeks. But because of everything that has happened already, Tim and I were very like, and Tim was super worried, and Tim, he really wanted to just take like the cautionary road and have me be induced at 37 weeks. I said fine, and the doctor said, okay, like, do you want to go right now to LND and we can start this process? She was like, do you want to go start right now? And me and Tim were like, no. No. And she was like, okay, well, can you come back tonight around 6 a.m.? And Tim and I were like, fine. So we went home, we got our dogs situated, we packed our bags, and I woke up around like 5:30, got dressed, ate breakfast, went to the hospital, walked in, and then they took me in, took me to my room, and that was where I was going to be spending the next 4.5 days. That I was going to do 2 different types of medicine, and we were going to hope, and what these medicines did is they softened your cervix, which would get you to dilate, which would get you to go into labor. Does that make sense? So I did 4 rounds of Cytotec, 5 rounds of Cervidil, and a round of Pitocin. And each of these lasts for 6 hours. They need to stay in for 6 hours. They last for 6 hours. And I took either an hour or 2-hour break between them. And so the first time that the Cervidil, it's just this little thing, literally like this tiny little thing, and they shove it all the way up in you, and then they, you know where the wall is, like you know, you're a girl. If you're watching this, I'm assuming you're a girl. You're probably not a girl. But at the end of your vagina, there's like a wall. Well, what they do is they shove it past that, okay? It was super icky. It felt like it was scratching very deeply in me. So they would pass it up, and then they would pull it out. And the nurses were okay, but I had this one male doctor who did it so roughly that, oh my god, I wanted to punch him in the face every fucking time. Because he would just, like, I was so raw, and it hurt so bad that, like, it hurt to walk. And I know, like, I don't know if it was because the doctors were doing it so rough, or because I was just so raw from, like, it scratching going in. Does that make sense? Because it goes in rough, but it comes out very, like, soft and, like, fine. But when the male doctor was doing it, I just, ugh. And they would pull me down and everything, and I would hold Tim's hand, and I would just squeeze the fuck out of his hand just because it hurt so bad. For about 54 hours, not including the hour to 2-hour breaks in between, or the time that they let me sleep that one night, and nothing happened. I got like a little face and like a little softer, but nothing was happening. So my doctor came in, and she told me that if I would break my water, that it would probably put me into labor, but that if it doesn't, I would need to get a C-section. And I told her no. I was very adamant about this. Like, I was not gonna let her break my water. I did not want her to break my water, and I kept saying that over and over again. No, you're not breaking my water. No, you're not breaking my water. And the nurses that were there was this one nurse, and she kept telling me, like, you're young, there's nothing wrong with you, tell them you want to go home. And she kept telling me that every time I saw her. She told me that there's nothing wrong with you, tell them you want to go home. And the other nurses were like, why are you here? Like, there's nothing wrong with you, you're fine. I don't know why they're inducing you at 37 weeks. And they all told me this, like, multiple nurses told me this. And like, I think they could tell that I was getting, like, overwhelmed, and I was over it, and I was there for 4 days already. And my doctor came in, and she said, I want to break your water. I told her no. And at that point, I was already over everything, and I just started bawling my eyes out, and I just needed like a minute. Like, there's a lot going on, there are people in my face every day, and I just wanted to be left alone. And I just like bawled my eyes out. So she was like, okay, we're not gonna break your water, but we're gonna do a bag of Pitocin. And I said, fine. And I told him that I wasn't even supposed to be there. On the drive home from saying yes to being induced, I literally told him in the car, like, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel like how she is supposed to come. So when we were in the hospital, and she said, well, I just want to break your water. And I said, no. And then I cried. Tim wasn't there because he was out showering, looking at, like, checking on the dogs and stuff. And I just cried. And then the nurses were like, tell them you want to go home. Don't let them do all this to you. There's no reason for you to be here. You are young. You're healthy. The baby is healthy. Y'all are fine. So they did the bag of Pitocin. It did not work. I felt like a little bit of contractions and stuff, but for the most part it didn't do anything at all for me. So I told them I wanted to go home, and I started packing my bags, and they were like, wait, like the doctor needs to come see you. And the doctor needs to hurry up because I want to go home. So I was already packing my bags. So she walked in and she was like, so I heard you want to go home. And I said, no, I am going home. Like, we're going home. Everything was already packed. I was already dressed. Like, I told them, take everything off of me. I'm done. I'm going home. So she was like, are you sure you want to go home? Blah, 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 all this stuff. And I said, yes, I want to go home. So I was already, like, overwhelmed. I was already mad. And as I was walking out, the nurses were like, oh, you're finally going home. And I'm like, yeah, finally I'm going home. Because I was there for like 4 to 5 days doing nothing. Tim and I went home, and I missed the next doctor's appointment because I just needed a break. So I went the next time, and I was 38 weeks and stuff like that. So no, at 39 weeks, I woke up in the morning because Tim had went to work. I think it was a Friday or a Saturday. As I was standing at the door talking to my neighbor, I literally felt like drops of water down my leg. So I was like, and I closed the door and I went to the restroom. And I wiped, and it was clear, and it was very mucusy. Oh no, I texted Tim, hey, just so you know, my mucus plug came out. And I texted the girls in my family, and I told them, my mucus plug came out. I'm leaking. I'm pretty sure it's my water. So my mom called me, and she was like, are you sure it's your water? Are you sure? And I was like, yeah, it's clear. Like, I'm not peeing or anything. I'm pretty sure it's my water because I had the mucus plug ready. And then I called him, and I said, hey, I'm pretty sure I'm in labor. He said, are you sure? I don't want to come home, blah, 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 blah. So he came home. Eventually, he came home like an hour or two later. My sister came over, and I was getting like a little bit of cramping in my back area, in my lower belly. And she was like, sit down. What are you doing? You're in labor. So I was up, and I was washing clothes, and I was doing dishes, and I was cleaning the house. I was going crazy. I was just cleaning everything. And so Tim comes home. My sister bought us food, so we're all eating. And we're all talking and stuff. My mom comes. She's like, oh my god, you're in labor. You want to go to the hospital? And I was like, no, I'm not going anywhere. So everybody leaves, and they're like, okay, we're going to let you do this at home for a while. They're going to call me if anything happens and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, like, this can take a while. It's my first baby. You know, I could be in labor for like 5 days, stuff like that. So me and Tim are chilling. And then about like 2 or 3, 4 p.m. rolls around. And he's like, hey, let's go to the hospital. Like, really want you to go. I really want you to go to the hospital, stuff like that. So I'm like, fine, we'll go to the hospital. Because I didn't want to go at all. And I was like, fine, okay, we'll go to the hospital. So we went to the hospital. I told them, hey, click the button. Because they lock it down. Because the baby's right there. And I go, hello, I think my water is broken. And they're like, oh, okay. So they bring me in. And then they do a swab. Because they have to make sure that it is your water and nothing, like, no pee, no semen and stuff like that. So they go in and they do the swab, they go test it, and then they come back, and the doctor that she brings back is like, oh, are you feeling like any pains, any contractions, because they're not coming up on a monitor? And I was like, yeah, I'm feeling some like contractions in my back and stuff. And he was like, how do they feel? And I said, like, intense period cramps. And he said, oh, okay, yeah, no fun. Like, man. So he's like, oh yeah, no fun. And then they come back and they're like, well, so it's not your water, it's Tim's semen. And I'm like, what? And they said, yeah, it's not your water, you didn't break your water, it's just like his semen leaking out of you and stuff like that. And me and Tim are like, what? Okay, whatever. So Tim and I go back home. The doctor, I wasn't in labor, that I was just having like Braxton Hicks contractions, nothing serious, stuff like that. And I'm like, okay. So we went back home, and then at this point it's already like 7 or 8. We eat dinner, we're laying down, I showered already and everything, and then I start getting these really bad cramps around 2 a.m. because they woke me up. And I woke up and I was just sitting there because I was getting pretty bad cramps, and they were every 4 minutes, lasting for about a minute long. Like they were lasting about 30 to 55 seconds long, and they were every 4 to 5 minutes, and I was just going and going all night long. I didn't wake up Tim or anything until a little bit later, and then it was about 2 p.m. 3 p.m. the next day, and I'm taking a shower because I'm still getting cramps and stuff. I'm taking a shower, letting the water hit my lower back, just trying to breathe with them, move with them and stuff like that. And Tim says, please, let's go to the hospital. Please, let's go to the hospital. And I'm like, no, 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 I don't want to do this at home, you know. And then he's like, please, let's just go to the hospital, please, please, please. And I said, fine. And then we pack everything back up because I'm like, pretty sure this is it. I'm in labor. That doctor's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And then I go back to the hospital, and I'm like, hey, yeah, I was here yesterday, still getting cramps and stuff, pretty sure I'm in labor. And they're like, oh, okay. This time they didn't even put me in, like the triage. They just automatically took me to a back room, and it checked me, and she's like, yeah, you're about 3 centimeters. And I was like, oh, I fucking knew it. Keep in mind, like, Tim and I live about like 30 minutes away from the hospital that I gave birth at. So it was a good little drive each and every time. So I was very annoyed with everybody. So I was sitting there and I was like, woo, woo, woo. Like, I'm pregnant. Like, I'm pregnant. I'm in labor. Woo, woo, woo. Stuff like that. And I was just kind of like moving through the motions of these contractions. And then the nurse says, hey, do you want the epidural? And I told them, well, like, y'all told me I was going to need the epidural anyway. They had told me that when I go into labor that I'm going to need to get the epidural. So the Pitocin will raise your blood pressure. So they will give you an epidural just to counteract that, to keep it very level. So I said, well, yeah, y'all told me I was gonna need it anyway. So it wasn't until like an hour or two later that I got the epidural. So I was sitting there in bed, you know, like all this stuff. I was in labor, and they come in, they give me the epidural. So they have me over the pillow, they make you hug it, and they have you laying over it like that. And right when she put it in, I felt it go splat. Like, I felt the gel come out of the needle into my like the left side of my back. And I was like, whatever. So I was in labor. Tim came back. I was just there waiting for it to kick in. It took a while, but it kicked in eventually. And I fell asleep. My family left because it was already 11 p.m. and nothing had happened. The baby wasn't here. So I was laying there. I ended up falling asleep 2 a.m. and the epidural started wearing off. So I kept clicking that button because they give you the button to release like the medicine. I told the girl, hey, my epidural's wearing off, because I woke up like kind of in pain. I woke up and I was 7 or 8 centimeters when they finally checked me, which is like an hour or two later. So I probably woke up around 7 centimeters. They checked me and I was 8, and it felt like I was burning. It felt like I was on fire. They told me that they tried to get the anesthesiologist to come back to hook me up with some epidural again. It didn't happen. She didn't come in for like another 3 or 4 hours. So around 2 a.m. I'm there, and my epidural wore off. And Tim texted my sister and my mom. He texted the group because I have a whole family group, and he said, hey, she's awake, she's 8 centimeters. And my mom texted back, oh my god, I'm coming. And my sister was up and she was like, I'm coming. They show up. I'm still 8 centimeters. I'm in a lot of pain. There's a lot of back pain. I never got like the full frontal stomach contractions where it feels like a rubber band is tightening up on it. At least that's what I've read. I had very bad lower back and like hip pain, and it felt like I was on fire. I had Tim and my mom like deeply massaging the insides of my thighs because that like helped my lower back. Does that make sense? I ended up throwing up, ended up crying and saying, I can't do this, I can't do this. Labor is no joke. And I told the doctor, I was like, it feels like I'm on fire. And I'm assuming that was a ring of fire and that was her head coming out, because I told the nurse, hey, she's like, I could feel her, like I'm pretty sure she's coming out. And she said, okay. And I was like, okay. And she said, don't push. And I was like, well, I'm not really trying. Your body just like nashes out the baby. So I'm sitting there and I'm cussing and I'm like, everybody shut the fuck up. Like, and I'm over it. It's about 5 in the morning at this time. I was in very active labor from 2 to almost 7 a.m. I'm there and I'm telling the doctor, like, I need to push, the baby's coming. And she's like, no, wait for your doctor. And my doctor took a fucking forever to come into my room. And then she finally comes in and she has an intern with her and blah, 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 blah. Like, I really didn't care, like, give two fucks. But I told the nurse, I was like, hey, do I need to do it with my doctor? Like, does she need to be here? And she was like, oh, well, it would be nice to it. It would be nice if she was here. And I was like, I don't care who's here. Just look and catch the baby. So I went from 8 to 10 centimeters on my own by myself, pushed out this baby, cried, threw up, everything. Keep in mind, I was in there for a long time. I was stuck in the hospital for a long time. I was in labor for almost 2.5, 3 days. Nobody took me seriously. When I was getting induced, nobody took me seriously. Yeah, so my little baby girl was born. She was perfect. They sang her happy birthday. I did not tear. I was tired. It was over and my baby was here. But yeah, so that is my pregnancy story. Failed induction and my failed epidural. This is the first time that I've made it fully through this story or my pregnancy journey, because it was a lot. And I think doctors like to induce at 37 weeks, just to induce at 37 weeks because it helps out their schedule. And hopefully the next time I get pregnant, because there will be a next time, hopefully, I don't know, I don't think I would ever go back to this particular hospital in San Antonio. Alright guys, so that is my plus size pregnancy story. It is finally filmed and I've tried filming it 3 times, but this time worked out. So maybe I'm healing emotionally from it, right? Let me know if y'all can relate to my story on any level. But yeah guys, thank you for watching. I will be back pretty soon with my postpartum depression video. And if y'all want to see that or be updated, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Let me know how your pregnancy went if you're a plus size woman. Even if you're not, let me know if you had a failed epidural, because that shit sucks. Bye guys.